Oman FM.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having a lovely, lovely day. We're back on the Unsaid show that is on every Monday. It's been a while, it's been a bit of a break, but we're back, we're ready, we're energized, and we're waiting for those calls. Today we have such an amazing topic, and it's something that maybe we don't know. It's called inner child. It happens, but we don't know that that's what it's called, and it's positive and negative. But first of all, let's see who's with me today in the studio, and let's start from over here.
Hey everyone, this is Sara Al Mawali, and I'm actually really excited for this topic because it's something that I use in my sessions, so it would be great to talk about it.
Awesome.
Hi everyone, I'm Tamsyn Pereira, and I am also really excited because not just learning about it in my sessions, but I've also done a lot of work on it for myself.
Perfect. That's good. So there's two in one.
Yep.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Today we're going to talk about the inner child. It's a very, very important topic. And we'd love for you to call as well on the numbers, which, I never memorize a number very well, but I have my amazing colleagues here.
I got you. It's 24949493. I repeat, 24949493.
So we're going to wait for your calls. Let's go for a short break, and we will be back on 90.4 FM.
Oman FM.
Show where we talk about things that people don't want to talk about. Isn't that interesting? So everything unsaid, everything people think is a taboo. And as the golden question that's always asked to us, is mental health a taboo? Do people talk about it? Well, guess what? People do talk about it. And your calls will enhance that as well. So we're waiting for your calls. But today, anyway, we're talking about the inner child. So inner child basically is memories that we go through as children. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. But it's how we grew up, the environment, what we learned in our house as a children. It could even be a scent that we used to smell. You know, our mom used to put a certain perfume. Our dad used to drink a certain coffee. You know, all these memories. And then what do we associate it with? Our own experiences as children. If we were playing in the parks, in the school, our friends, all these things visit us as adults. Sometimes as clips. And sometimes we don't understand. Sometimes when we, for example, we used to love a favorite sweet when we were really young, and then we find it in the store and we eat it. We're like, oh my God, I love this. It just reminds me of childhood. So it can come that way. It could come in trauma as well, as if we hear a loud voice, if we hear a bad memory, it also affects us. So it depends. It could be positive and negative. Sara, what do you think about this theory of inner child?
For me, I think inner child is acknowledging what the child went through during their childhood.
Yeah.
And it could be, as you said, good memories and bad memories. And most of the memories are in our subconscious mind. And I don't know if you guys heard this, but I hear a lot of people saying, I don't remember my childhood.
Yes.
But then when we talk about it, and as we bring up maybe things in our current life, and we connect it to what happened in the past, it starts unlocking all those memories.
That's very true. And maybe there's some things we don't want to remember. So it
we
gets
block
locked
it.
up. Exactly, we block it. So it's not that we don't remember, but our subconscious mind has kept it safe to protect us sometimes.
It's a coping
That's what we
mechanism.
think it's doing. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Tam, what about you?
I always hear clients, whenever anyone comes in for a session too, like it's like you're fighting against what your brain is actually trying to protect you from. So that's why I always say like anxiety to an extent is a good thing, because your brain's actually protecting you from, you know, panicking or going into that state. But for inner child work, I think a lot of us are not as conscious as to how much of it comes up in our life on a day-to-day basis.
That's true.
And I think that's the biggest chunk of your inner child work, is actually being more mindful and conscious of how different things are affecting you, so that you can take that information and then see how you make it work for you, so that moving forward you use it to like the best of your ability, rather than seeing it as your brain trying to go against you. You work hand in hand with it.
I like that you mentioned anxiety, because I like to think anxiety is an alarm in the system, in your body. And that alarm is basically your inner child asking for you, asking for you to like say, to kind of go back to you and be like, hey, look at me, I need something right now. Something is not okay, I'm not feeling safe.
Yeah. That's interesting, because studies did show that we should listen to the inner child. We, of course, not if it's a evil one, kind of, but like we should listen to the inner child in us, because it's trying to tell us something. It's trying to tell us why this is bothering him, why did it hurt the person. And a lot of times some people don't want to hear it in a way, because they think maybe we're going to go to a not so good place. For example, again, if we take an easy kind of thing, not a difficult one, again, to go the sweets. Let's say we used to like a certain sweet, and then we eat it now and we remember, then we say, oh my God, but I shouldn't, because I'm going to gain weight, or because of God knows what, because of health. So then our inner child kind of pushes that, but this is giving you happiness. But then the elder one is saying, no, but it's not going to make me feel well. So there's a lot of complications that might happen again.
Conflict.
But the main thing that we do as therapists is, this is one of the most important points that we are going to discuss with you. And there's a lot of things also with studies and articles about rebirth. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, again. And it's a whole idea of going through the canal of stresses. And it's very interesting that sometimes the way we, our mothers gave birth to us has something to do also with our life, which people probably would think that doesn't make sense, but it does. Because once you take that person through that canal again, that birth canal, it's a very interesting experience. Have you guys ever tried it?
No.
I don't think I
Okay,
have.
we need to try
I
that.
haven't. I did read something interesting about inner child work though, and it was a bit of a different perspective that your inner child is basically any version of you that's younger than you. So it could be a day ago, it could be 10 minutes
That's
ago.
true.
It doesn't necessarily have to be like when we talk about inner child work in
Yeah, we
sessions.
always think about
a lot of people think of
infant.
like a baby
Yes,
or
yes.
like, and they say we don't remember that, but then you can remember a day ago or a week ago or a
But
month
how is
ago.
inner child like? For example, a
Yeah.
day ago, if it's a child, and last week I was not a child.
But you've
for example.
grown emotionally and spiritually.
it's another type
Yeah,
of-
it's another
okay.
type of growth,
That's
not just
interesting.
physical
Yeah.
growth as well.
That's very interesting.
So that's a cool perspective to think
And
of.
how I like to see it as well is imagine this body you're living in right now.
Yeah.
You've been living in the same body from the day you were born.
Yeah.
So imagine the amount of things you've been going throughout your whole life until this day.
A lot.
That's a lot of things.
And you know what I always like to believe that our body is and our life. I always, maybe coming from a country that has a lot of mountains and deserts and all of that, I always feel like we start like sand and then we grow, and then there's a lot of things that happen in the mountain, a lot of roads, a lot of stones, and that's how life is, you know. You're born a clean slate, or a slate that has nothing, and then slowly with time things build up on you, and it's exactly like the environment. It's the same idea. So how can we be the same like before, but at the same time to remember how we were is also a part of our life, and it's very
a
important.
part of growth.
That's true. Give us a call and tell us what you think, and the number again is
24949493.
and I hope you can remember that number, because I need to memorize that number. On 90.4 FM, give us a call. We're going through a short break and we will be back.
This is Oman FM.
So we're talking about the inner child, and something that Tam told me was very, very interesting, that it has 4 elements or something like that, 4 steps in it, and I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I'll read it out because I
Yeah.
don't know this, but
Yeah.
it's the negative side of inner child wounds.
Okay.
So wounds, as in like think of like a physical wound that you have. Like
Yes.
if you have a cut on your hand, you can't just slap a band-aid on it. It's going to fester, right? You need to take care of this wound. So the 4 main wounds for inner child is like abandonment wound,
Okay.
guilt wound, trust wound, and neglect wound. So we'll go through each of them and then we'll share
True.
detail.
Let's talk a little bit about these psychological wounds.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people seem to think that it's easy to just put a plaster on it and move on.
Right.
And usually what I like saying is, let's say I did have a wound. It's a huge process to clean this wound. They will bring the antiseptic first, and they will clean it, then they'll put a certain kind of plaster, then they remove it, then they change it and put another one. I'll go to the doctor maybe every week. So there's a lot of process. So why, when it comes to mental health, we seem to think that it should happen like
Quick.
this?
You can't heal in a day.
Exactly. It's a process. I mean, today we're talking about inner child. Inner child is things that happen in our childhood, which, by the way, a lot of clients, and I don't know if you guys feel the same, don't want to talk about their childhood.
Yeah.
They actually say, why do we have to open those files? I've come today because of
this
this.
reason.
No,
Right.
but as therapists or someone in mental health, not everyone, not a lot of people actually do this process. I've actually read that some don't and just move on. But for me personally, in my practice, I need to know what happened in the childhood. Even if it's something, maybe it's not always negative, guys. It can be positive. I just need to understand, because honestly, I'm yet to see, but a lot of things have to do with childhood. Today we're hearing from Tam, abandoned, neglect, trust,
And guilt.
and guilt. These are all things
Yeah.
that you learn from childhood. It doesn't happen suddenly, when you're an adult. For example, if you're in a family that always makes you feel guilt, or something happened and then you felt guilty and then you continuously had that guilt. Or trust, for example, you lost it as a child.
Yeah.
You can build it, but there is a reason why it might have, kicked in and not in a not so good way, or in a good way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes your family gives you so much trust that you feel you can rule the world. But the moment you do something wrong, you're like, oh my God, and they trust me, and you should not beat yourself up. It happens. Just pick up yourself and try and continue.
Yeah. Before we get into like each of these
Yeah.
wounds, I do want to say, when I like what you said about how, when you think of something from the past, we don't only have to look at it from a negative sense. Like, for example, a client once talked about a personal story, like something from the past came up in a session, and it was a negative thing, but then we also looked at how she went through with it. She kind of built this resilience, and then that's a trait that she had built
That's
on for
true.
all those years, and then 30 years of her life, now she's so strong and she behaves a certain way. So it wasn't just a negative thing. We realistically look at both sides of it and not
That's
just
right,
a
yeah.
negative one.
So resilience is also a point that
yeah.
I think should be added, because
Yeah.
it's something we learn as children, by the way, and then we grow up and we kind of forget how we were resilient as toddlers.
Yeah.
That's from the beginning.
falling
We
down and
fell
getting up.
100 times. We got up, we hurt ourselves, we ate things that people don't even know that we ate. There's a lot of
Yeah.
things that happen to us as children, but we don't remember, because our subconscious works very well. But
Yeah.
sometimes it does pop up later
And
on.
even if you don't remember, it still shows up in your adulthood.
Yes.
Because when a child is being criticized or being shamed or feels guilty or don't have trust, and when they're going through that pain, they don't use their logical brain. They don't think, they feel. But when they feel and it's not being acknowledged, they just move on.
Yes.
And then
yes.
that's why when you grow up, you start having all these things pouring up again, and then you're wondering, why am I feeling this way? Well,
You didn't deal with it.
it wasn't been
And it
looked
wasn't.
at, it wasn't
Exactly.
been seen, and
Exactly.
I think that's why the
Interesting.
inner child work is important, and that's why you're bringing up these things like shame and guilt. We all went through it,
Yes.
but it's all about, did we actually get to the root? Did
That's
we
true,
actually
that's
did we
true.
have support? Did we have people comforting us at that time? The needs were unmet.
100%. Yes. And you know what? I look a lot into serial killers, and I'm weird that way. But I'm always amazed on why are you so bad? Like what? I don't believe that God has made a person bad. We all, came out of our mother's womb good and loved, but things happen in our life. So visiting a childhood memory or inner child for these serial killers is actually one of the ways to break them down when they actually interrogate them, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And it's like, but why are you like this? Like, what is wrong, kind of thing. And then when you go back and you read all the articles or you're watching a documentary, you find out, wow, it was actually extremely dark. It's very rare that they were okay. Some of them might have been, and it's just something in their head, but mostly it's connected with inner child. Yeah.
Right. For anyone who's listening, if you can relate to any of these wounds, please call us and, either ask us a question so we can help you out, or tell us a story or anything really, but just call us. All right. So let's start with the abandonment wound. So that's what feeling left out feels like, or fear of being abandoned, fear of like having a partner leave you, fear of not getting picked by a team. You don't like being alone. You're very codependent on others. You threaten to leave just so that the other person can convince you to stay. And people who have an abandonment wound, they normally attract emotionally unavailable people.
That's very interesting. I think narcissism, I can clearly hear.
It's one of our best topics.
Yes. You know what I'm thinking? I think we should go for a break and give people a chance to think about those, and then we actually explain them after the break. Because I think once you, like, I'm hearing it now and I'm thinking, wow, this, that, and the other.
I know. Things are coming into my head.
Exactly,
I'm like, okay.
right?
We all can relate to it. Right?
Definitely.
Totally can relate.
So maybe we should give them the number and let's see after the break what they have to say, and we'll be talking about it anyway.
So make sure you call us on 24949493. I'll say it again, 24949493.
back on the Unsaid show that is on every Monday at 1 o'clock. And it talks about all the topics to do with mental health, with life, all the things that maybe people will not be talking about. We'll be talking about it here on 90.4 FM, Muscat FM. Okay, so we're talking about the inner child, and we were actually... Like Tam gave us like 4 shots, and now we actually we talked about it and we thought of it, and now let's talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, mention it again, Tam.
Okay, so abandonment wound. This is fear of
Let's
being...
take one by one.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, so feels left out or feels like they're going to be left.
So I'm guessing we've all met people who have that around us, and maybe we were one of those people as well.
Yeah.
But I clearly have met people who always feel that for some reason we're leaving them. Even though we haven't done that, we didn't give them that feeling, but they always feel like they're left behind, and they live the idea that, I was left, and maybe that person just went to drink tea and coming back kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they live the idea that, I'm being abandoned. Like, this is the story of my life. I've always been abandoned. My family did that. My siblings, my friends, my cousins. And then there's this whole thing, which the people that with him are like, whoa, wait a minute. Where did this come from? And then the person says, I don't know. And then you talk to them a bit more and you find out, wow, there's a lot that's been going on in the inner child, and as this children, or this child, or this shakhs, this person grew up, a bit of Arabic glitch there. Okay, so have you guys met someone like that?
Me, myself.
Me, myself, and
was
I.
just, when I just said that out loud, I just realized how, like, when I was younger too, I would get attached to people easily. But also, I really, even up till now, I don't like people leaving. Like, even if a friend is traveling, or if I've met a good friend and they're leaving the country, I'm like, no, I don't want you to leave. Like, I like this relationship, this friendship, and I don't want it to end.
It's
But
interesting.
yeah, that's connected to
it
it as
links to
well.
what you said last time.
My anxiety.
No, remember what we were talking about last time? The subconscious and dreams and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Remember the dream that you used to have?
Like having my dad leave.
Exactly.
As well.
Look at the link.
I gotta have a conversation with my dad.
There's a link, as everything we do has it's the same theme in a way, but we don't realize because we feel everything is alone, kind of. But actually, it's all tied up together. How about you, Sara?
I feel like before my healing, before I actually knew what inner child was, before
Yes.
doing the work, I did have this fear of abandonment. And then that led to people pleasing. Having that I need to make sure this person has to be in my life to see me, because if I don't be there for them, even when I don't want to, they're going to leave me.
That's a point. The pleasing,
very interesting.
And
the pleasing person. That's a
people
huge
pleasing.
pe-
Yeah, and that kind of, when you were mentioning these points, it kind of hit me a little bit. I was
That
like, okay.
also, you're right, that also connects to like the last part of this sentence that says you normally attract emotionally unavailable people. So for people who are not available, but you're the people pleaser for them, so you try to keep them so they don't leave.
That's
Yeah.
true.
It's
That's
amazing
true.
how it's all
I
connected.
know. It's
It
also
is.
when somebody's used to a certain abuse and they only go to people who are abusive because they feel that this is who they can
This is
communicate
normalized
with.
for
Yes,
them.
exactly. So that also is a link. What's
Yeah.
the second one?
The second wound?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the guilt wound. All right, so this is something we're all guilty
Yes,
of.
definitely.
Is you feel sorry or bad, you don't like to ask for things, you use guilt to manipulate situations, you can't say no, you're really bad at setting boundaries, and then you normally attract people who make them feel guilty. So you kind of sit with that chaos of, oh, they're making me feel guilty, and you condition yourself to feel like that's normal, that's okay. But in
interesting.
reality, it's not.
That's interesting. I feel it's got two parts to it, the guilt thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like the first part is a different part from the end. It's not really smoothly connected for some reason.
A bit of both, yeah, I
right?
see it.
Yeah, but I do understand the first part.
Yeah.
I get that fully, and I think I like how Sara said before my healing. That's quite interesting. So I'll
Yeah.
say after my healing as well, I was a person the same. Like, I have to please, I have to make everybody feel happy, everybody feel good, because I didn't want to leave anyone out, and that guilty feeling of, I hope I haven't forgotten this person or this. I don't want this person to feel I didn't care about them. So it's interesting too. Then it puts you in a position where you're thinking, where did that come from? And then you dig deeper and deeper and deeper into yourself.
And I think something to keep in mind is that guilt is not necessarily a bad emotion. Guilt is something necessary. Our ancestors needed that to kind of, be there for other people. And guilt is not a bad thing, but I feel like having so much guilt that eats you up and you cannot function, that's when it needs to be looked at.
That's true. I personally always talk about, how mothers always feel guilty for their kids. And a lot of time people will say that in talks. I'm like, by the way, there's nothing wrong. That means you're alive.
Yeah.
That means you care. It doesn't mean extreme guilt as well, but a little bit of it makes sense. Imagine if there's a person who does not feel any guilt. That itself is a syndrome, right?
Yeah.
It's not a good one. So it's not always negative. You're right.
Yeah.
There's also, but everything to do with mental health or anything we talk about, there has to be a balance.
Yeah,
That's exactly it. Yeah.
So, okay, I guess the second part of the guilt wound that you said contradicts the first half. So we talked
Yeah.
about the first half. I guess the second part, I'm thinking more of like individuals who have been made to feel guilty by their parents.
Yes.
Like even if they haven't done something wrong.
True.
Right? Like as a child, if you've broken something and you've made a mistake, it's okay. You're allowed to make mistakes, but they don't view failure like that. So imagine having a mom or a dad make you feel really bad and hold that against you until your teenage years and your adult years, and they keep bringing it up.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It makes me, I'm laughing because I read this quote in something and I love it. I use it now. And it's like your parents call you and they read out your CV. Do you remember when you were 9 and you did this? And remember when you were 14, you did this. But you always do that. Remember when you were 20 and you did it? And it's like your
oh my
whole
God.
CV, and you're like, oh my God, will it never be forgotten? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's a bad CV because it just continues. So this CV, it could be said that way, and it could be said in a nice way where, remember when you were 10 and you made me that beautiful birthday card? Remember when you were a teenager and you were so amazing? So it depends how you read. So again, it's literally like you're going to a job and they're reading your CV. Are they picking the good things or are they picking the bad things? It's quite interesting.
Unfortunately, I think not a lot of individuals who like work through their inner child work are able to have these conversations with their parents later on, because there's this whole concept of reparenting yourself, where you take what your parents have given you and then through your own experiences you reparent yourself.
Yes.
And like I've been fortunate enough to have healthy conversations with my parents, and then we've corrected each other, apologized for things.
That's
and
really
it's
healthy.
amazing.
Yeah.
And we've grown so much as a family. But then I'll also hear a lot of stories from other friends and family and individuals who say, oh, we can never have that conversation with our parents, and
Definitely.
it's really difficult. And like,
It is. Definitely, I agree with that, because you're not supposed to be questioning that, that they make you feel that way. And it's quite interesting, because I can imagine if you tell some parents, well, you know what, you also have to apologize because you did this, and I also, and they'll be like, what? I apologize? What is this? Who is this? And they kind of get shocked, and you get shocked. How did you say that?
yeah.
So in this position where, wow, did those words just come out of my mouth, kind of thing. So yeah, it is quite difficult. But also sometimes also kids do take it a bit of a step forward, and they kind of really guilt their parents. Like, if it wasn't for you, you're the one who made me feel this way, you're the one. It's all like pointing fingers, and that's also not right.
Definitely.
So again, the balance is very important.
Yeah.
And also knowing that even if you are not able to talk to your parents about these things, is finding a space where you are able to open up about these things.
Exactly.
These maybe issues or experiences that you had with your parent.
That's actually good. Let's go for a quick break and come back. So the topic of inner child is quite interesting, and it seems we're going to have to talk about it again and again because it has so many, paths.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've talked about two right now.
Two wounds.
Two wounds.
Abandonment and guilt. And we
Yeah.
have two more to go. Trust and neglect.
Oh,
wound.
the trust one.
And
Which one do
also,
you wanna do
if you
first?
guys also want to ask us questions, want to share something, please do call us on 24949493. I'll say it again, 24949493. And it will be great to hear from you guys.
Of course, Sara did forget to say that earlier.
Yes.
Just being mean.
I think we're all relating.
I really need, now I feel guilty.
We're all relating so much to what's being discussed.
We're really into it.
Yeah. All right.
And this is something that we always tell people that also as therapists, we
go
have
through
our
it.
stories, we've gone through things as well, and that makes us human.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is that we know now when to fix it. Now is the red light. Now we need to fix this thing, and that's the difference. Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to do trust or neglect?
Trust.
Trust? Okay. All right, so the trust wound for inner child. You're afraid to be hurt, so maybe you act out in certain ways or you people please, like Sara said, so that you stop yourself from getting hurt. You don't trust yourself in a lot of situations, so you're constantly doubting things around you.
Or you defend yourself all the time.
Yep, that too. You find ways intentionally not to trust people, so you start doubting everything that they do, even if they don't have it out against you. You feel insecure. You need a lot of external validation from other people. You can't validate yourself. You don't feel safe. And then you also, people with a trust wound normally attract people who also don't feel safe.
Oh, that's not a good group.
So imagine having anxiety, but then also having someone else having anxiety. And
then
It just
Mad
builds a
anxiety
big
together.
pyramid of anxiety.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of people have the thing of the lack of trust, and sometimes it could go really bad. The lack of trust, actually, it's not something small. It's very big, and it does happen from childhood. Your parents could have taught you how to have trust in yourself, and they say, "I trust you," and all of that. And if something goes wrong, they don't go haywire and go, "Oh my God, but I trusted you," because that's what makes that click happen. That switch goes on when you're an adult, and you remember that.
Yep.
And at the same time, they could have been the ones who said, "Well, I don't trust you, you're a liar, everything you do is bad." And that's why we keep on emphasizing on home being the first school for a child. Yes, parents, it's a big responsibility, and that's what comes with having kids. So you really are molding this person after God, how to deal with life. And it's a huge responsibility.
It is.
No pressure, but it is a responsibility that we go through calmly. Some people go through it nicely and calmly, and some don't. So it's not something small at all.
Yeah, and I think we do acknowledge that each parent is doing the best they
Yes,
can. They're doing the best they can with the information and knowledge that they got as a child as well.
Exactly.
But even adults go through inner child wounds.
Yes, because now they think I have to be this parent, but I was brought up this way. That's why. And that's why we say, you also have to read, you have to ask, you do not use...
Need to heal.
Exactly. The healing is spot on, actually,
Need to
Sara,
heal.
because you're carrying a lot of weight with you, and then it's just too much and too overwhelming. And kids do not come with a manual. They do not come with a manual. You learn, and especially if it's the first child. That child is an experiment. Believe me, it's an experiment. It goes good or bad, but it's an experiment because you have your own thing. Some people are children. I mean, they're very young when they have their first child.
Yeah.
They probably haven't even, done a lot of things or don't have that experience in life anyway. So it's not something small.
And also, guess what? Even if that child is an experiment and it did not go well, you still have time to repair that. And I think that's the important thing to acknowledge.
Yes, that's true.
I love that you said that about repairing, because so when I run my parent counseling sessions, so when I'm having conversations with the parents aside from the child, there are topics I've brought up where you can tell parents who are willing to grow and learn and make those changes, because I can see it in their face, and it's beautiful. Sometimes they burst out crying because then they
Yes.
realize how much, like, not how much damage, but they realize the mistakes they've made. But then I also get them to recognize what good they have done as well as parents. And, you know, for them to have that realization, that self-awareness that, oh, I made these mistakes with my child, and I'm going to go apologize and fix things going forward is such a huge milestone.
It is, it
and not a
is.
lot of parents are willing to do that. But yeah,
That's a
think
big
it's-
step to actually admit.
yeah,
Is something beautiful, and it takes a lot of courage.
definitely.
Yeah, it doesn't make you a bad person. Everybody makes mistakes.
Exactly, but some parents seem to think that we're parents, we should not make any mistakes. You know, we should,
Yeah.
and
Then
if we
you're not
do,
human.
we shouldn't say it. We should hide it and just discuss it. Guys, I think we did a mistake, kind of thing. But I think it is being a parent. It is not easy, you know, always, because you do want to look like that role model in your children's eyes.
To be perfect.
Exactly. I mean, it's something you do want. I must admit, I'm one of those people who I want my kids to feel. And sometimes, and with this generation, because we've given them that trust, you don't have a chance to say, they already told you. You know, Mom, you've did actually being told. So you're actually in the you're trying to defend yourself. Is the other way around now, and how things are. So things have changed, and I hope they do change to the better and not to the worse, because that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, well, since we're talking about parents, and you know, Sarah and I see parents as well. Okay, so since there's a huge Indian community in Oman, I do want to address this as someone who is Indian. It's very common in our culture to have a helicopter parenting, where the parents are constantly taking care of everything and doing things for the child, and therefore there's no trust built with that child for them to be independent and do things on their own.
So they're very worried about them, maybe.
Right, so they're
scared.
like, we would rather do it for you. Like, it's something as simple as like, oh, we're gonna make you a snack. Like, why can't your child learn to do that for themselves and feed themselves, rather than you constantly taking care of everything? So I would connect that to trust. So you're like, oh, I don't trust my child to do it the right way, so I'm gonna do it for them.
Yes.
And therefore it kind of messes up that trust. So imagine a child who's constantly having having things done for them, growing up to be like, oh no, I can't trust anyone.
Yes.
I have to do it myself, and you become
And then they
hyper
become
independent.
another parent that they've.
It
the same
snowballs
environment.
into such a big
That's
messy
interesting.
thing.
And it's called
right?
helicopter parenting.
Helicopter parenting, where you're constantly helicoptering your kids
Mm.
and doing things for them. But yeah, it's really big in my culture as well, and I'm sure similar to yours. So
It is, and also I think the help in the house as well, right?
yeah,
Like, don't do it, you know, they'll do it. Don't do it. And I think it's also from fear.
yeah,
I must say, part of it's from
fear
fear.
and lack of trust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then as they grow up, sometimes you break that. But it is also two things together. It's fear and lack of trust. So yeah, it does. And you know, our cultures are very similar. Let's
Yep.
take a break
Yeah.
and see if somebody has something to say about it. Sarah, the number, please.
All right, so make sure you call us on 24949493. Say it again, 24949493.
10 more minutes left, and we're at the last point of inner child. We've been talking about wounds, and I think there's one more wound left. Let's
Yes.
clean that wound, Tam.
All right, so it's the neglect wound.
The deepest one.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought trust was the deepest wound.
Yeah, I don't know why I always feel trust is like...
No.
Actually, they're all
They're all
tied up.
connected.
They're
They
all
are
connected.
It's very weird.
All right, let's do this. Neglect wound. So, someone with a huge neglect wound for their inner child, you struggle to let things go. You have very low self-worth, low self-esteem. You get angry very easily, especially if you're neglected. You struggle to say no. You repress a lot of emotions in order to protect yourself. You fear being vulnerable with anyone or anything. And those people normally attract people who don't appreciate them or make them feel seen.
Wow.
That's interesting, right?
It's always what, is mind-boggling is why do we always attract really the wrong people for us?
Oh, I read about this.
Okay, go for it.
So, especially in like romantic relationships,
Yeah.
apparently we tend to choose people who, like if we grew up in a household where everything was chaotic and that's how we were shown love, then you
want
expect
that.
that later on in a relationship. So if it's not chaotic and crazy and passionate, then it's not love.
So it's inner child.
Yep. But if it's stable, you're just like, what is this?
Yeah, this is not
this is
spicy
too boring.
enough.
Yeah.
Exactly, I
And
can
then
imagine.
you start instigating and self-sabotaging in order to get chaos.
Yeah,
Because that's all
doesn't
you
the
know.
logic make you think, okay, I'm
Yeah.
this way, I should choose someone, differently?
You want to stay in
But
that
I don't know, it's like we
uncomfortableness.
stay in that uncomfortable relationship.
Because that's all you know, that's what you grew up with, that's normalized. And I think the moment you break out of that pattern and you notice it, you no longer have to go in that cycle all over again.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the abuses is neglect. And a lot of people think, how is neglect an abuse? It's the least one looked at. And even though studies show that it's one of the highest. But people don't see neglect as abuse at all.
It is.
It's just like nothing bad happened.
Exactly. There was no sexual abuse, there was no physical abuse, then how is it an abuse? Because people just think it's those two. But the emotional abuse and neglect is actually one of the most important ones, but it's actually the hidden ones that people don't look at. So neglect is a wound that would be quite effective in a not so good way for a person as they grow up. Let's talk about happy things now. Seeing that it's at the end, and they don't think that we only do unsaid things that are not so happy. We do talk about happy things too. So one of the things that are nice about inner childhood is also the happy things that happen.
Yeah, and I think when we look back at our childhood, we see the bad things, but we also see the good moments.
That's exactly
The moments where we did feel joy, the moments where we did feel connected.
And that's what helps us heal those
Yeah.
moments, actually. So the inner child, the positive part, helps heal the inner child that might be negative. A lot of times when we are upset and we try and heal, we try and bring up the happy things, right? The happy emotions. So it's very, very important to have as well.
Yeah, and I think even going through the healing process, we're learning to regulate our nervous system
That's true.
that was maybe felt neglected or abandoned. And we do that by doing things that enrich our inner child, that makes
Yeah.
us feel alive again, the things
Yeah.
maybe our inner child really wanted to do.
That's true.
Let's say, for example, when you were younger, you wanted to go camping, but maybe no one in your family was interested.
Yeah.
But then also learning as you grow older to find a community that loves to do those things.
Yes, exactly.
And then you do that and you enrich that child or that little version of you that actually wanted to do those
That's
things.
true. Why is it that people, when they do inner child or child, they will jump up and down? That's one of the, and they're like, yeah, I feel like, have you noticed always about jumping?
Yeah.
Dancing,
jumping, eating things you're not supposed to eat because it's not good for your system, but it's like a sneak peek. I like it when I see older people eating a piece of chocolate and really like,
Because I think we're
enjoying
like
it.
so repressed when we were kids to
Yeah.
hide our emotions and just deal with it, or like don't cry, don't
Yeah.
show your emotion.
Yeah.
What will other people think? So then when you're actually working through your inner child stuff as an adult,
Yeah.
you get to do all of these things. You get to be messy and chaotic and
Exactly.
scream and shout and
That's
just,
true.
rub dirt all over you,
It's
and
so
whatever
funny.
it is.
One of the things that I enjoy doing, it's very weird, I guess, and interesting, is when I travel alone and I'm in the hotel room. So, they bring in the food on the table, you eat proper, and it goes. And that's how it's always been. And all my life, it has to be proper, So actually, I remember I was in a trip in Bahrain, and I was like, I'm going to order pizza, and I'm going to eat it on the bed. I was like, yeah. And then I had it on the box, of course, like the movies, you know how they,
Yeah.
and it was like, and it was so funny because it felt so sneaky. As if it was something really bad. It wasn't at all, but it was just like, and I came home and I was like, guess what? I had on the bed. And everyone's like, on the bed. I'm like, it was in the box, and it was just a feeling of me. This is me trying to be a little bit rebellious. And it's that little thing that made me feel, this is nice. This is different. Maybe I won't do it again, but it's a good feeling, you know, just to do something out of the ordinary of what you do.
I think something that I did that kind of brought back my inner child was, there was this time in my life where I wanted to go through that healing process, and I said, I'm going to buy a diary, but I wanted it to be glittery. I wanted to represent me as a child.
Did you have the fluff pen?
Yes, I had the fluff pen. I had stickers.
Yes.
And I just wanted to put myself in that version of me that needed to heal.
Yeah, that's nice. That's
And
nice.
I think that was very helpful for me.
What about you, Tam?
My favorite thing, and I still do it every other week, is I think when I was a kid, my parents, obviously for very good reasons, would say, okay, every time we go to the beach, you know, don't bring so much sand into the car. I feel like I have half a beach in my car. There's so much sand and there's shells everywhere, because I get to just be messy and play in the sand, collect shells, be in the water, just be a
So we're
complete
taught
mess.
to be very proper.
Yeah.
And I think that's
I
what
get to
grows
do
up
that
with us.
now, and I'm like, you know what, I'll deal with it later when I need to get my car cleaned. There's a solution to that, but it's not hurting anyone. It's giving me so much joy and pleasure.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna do that. That's why no one sits in my car. It's got a bunch of sand in it.
That's nice.
It's
So it's the
your
little
car
thing.
now.
Yeah.
So the little thing that we'd like you all to have, and we're giving it to you at the end of the show, is try and do something. It might be small, but it brings you so much joy. And I think that's the way to go. It doesn't have to be something huge and extreme. It can be some little small thing that brings you so much happiness. And maybe it's a moment of happiness, but it's worth it.
And you know what? Go back to that little version of yourself.
Exactly.
And express all the needs and wants that you've always desired and maybe never got.
Exactly.
And
Enjoy.
and enjoy it.
Yes.
My piece of advice before we end our show is, whenever you feel upset or you need like physical touch, do it for yourself. Hug yourself. And I know it sounds really stupid, but
It works.
it works wonders.
Pat
Like
yourself
there are
on the back.
times when
Yeah.
if I'm upset and I'm crying, I'll hug myself or I'll kiss my arm, because that's something that you're giving to your inner child self. Like imagine yourself as a child and hug your baby self as well. It works wonders.
And guess what?
Interesting.
You are now the mother and the father of that child inside of you.
That's nice. Trying to go with a bang, son.
Yeah.
Okay, and as we say at the end of the show always, change begins with you. Have a lovely day, and
Take
we'll
care.
see you next week. Take care.